Just as we start, I would note that Easter's been about resurrection, and people have a lot of mistaken notions. And just one clarifying word I would put about that is that resuscitation is not the same as resurrection. That's a key fact to keep in mind about the stories that were developed by the Jesus community in the years after his death. Now, it's an oddity. A one-eared, bow-tied, chocolate rubber Easter bucky. Barb came across these, and I looked at them, and I was amazed. The question came, what does this have to do with anything? What does this matter? Easter bunnies are hard enough, and Easter duckies, but and as I thought about it, looking what sort of looks like the result of some failed experiment in genetic modification. It struck me that really there is a point here that has to do with our subject of Easter. And one of the things that occurs to me is that these little suckers are amusing. They're kind of funny. And if the healthy soul can't have a sense of humor, what can it do? And if you can't laugh at something like that, what can you laugh at? And that really relates to my subject for the day, which is Easter, which is that what Easter is about is, Easter is not about Jesus. Easter is about you. And really, what it is that in the midst of our culture, which is so driven, which is so striving, which is so achievement-oriented, it strikes me that the healthy soul has a difficult time. And that the healthy soul forgets who it is. And that if Easter is about anything, it is about reminding you who it is that you are as a creation of the universe, a creation of G-O-D. It's about reminding you of what your foundation is, of what your heart of hearts is really about, which is your deep soul. Richard Rohr, I think, catches it right when he says that there's something in you, and if you pay attention and look inside yourself, you'll see this. There's something in you that is not touched by coming and going, by ups and downs, by for and against, by the raucous teams of totally right and totally wrong. If you know, there's a part within you that is willing to wait. good and evil as they kind of slowly unwind themselves in our world. And if you note, this deep part of you, this soul part, this part that is deep and vast and silent and resourceful and energized, one of the things that it does is it watches. It watches the stories of all of the comings and goings and ups and downs. It watches all of the stories that we weave about ourselves. And sits back there and goes, oh, isn't that interesting that you're telling yourself that one now? Watches those stories of our egos and ourselves. And so what I want to suggest this morning is that if Easter has any point at all, it has to be about this part of who you are, this part of who we are. Now, I assume that most of you think that you know who you are. But the thing is that if you think you know who you are, that's not it. That's not who you are. That's something else. That's your story. That's the ego. Because this piece of soul that I'm talking about is beyond descriptors. It's beyond words. It watches the stories come and go, as I said. It's beyond all of the things that you do and identify with. It watches your doings come and go. The core of who you are, the soul of who you are, is pure awareness. It's awareness itself that is nothing to do with thinking. Nothing to do with thinking. St. Teresa of Avila, mystic of the 15th century, said, "The soul is spacious and plentiful, and its amplitude is impossible to exaggerate, and nothing can diminish its beauty." The Sufi poet Rumi talks of the soul as being like the ultimate host. The ultimate host who opens her arms to every new arrival, whatever it might be. Joys, depressions, angers, momentary awarenesses might come as unexpected visitors, and soul welcomes them all without judgment and with open arms. I mean, even if they are a crowd of sorrows, who break down the doors of your heart and destroy all the furniture in there, still your soul treats them as honored guests, because the soul knows that they may be clearing you out for some new delight of growth and awareness. The soul meets dark thoughts, shame, malice, and meets them at the door and invites them in so they can be illuminated. Soul is grateful for whoever comes in that door, because soul knows that each has been sent from the beyond as a needed guide. So that's what this story of Easter and resurrection is about. It's about soul. How so? Well, the bottom line is that actually everything. See, Easter is about death, dying, and then new life happening. And it seems to be, the wisdom literature says that you don't wake up to soul unless you're willing to die. Oh, joy, we say. Isn't that fun? No, it's not fun. But what it does mean is that you have to be willing to totally hit bottom, to be in that space where you have no say, no control, totally beyond the place where you are now. John of the Cross called it the dark night of the soul. Early Christians called it the descent into hell. I've always thought of it as the leap into the bottomless abyss. Not cheery stuff. Being with cancer patients, I worked in a hospice for a number of years, and working with people who were dying was always a little bit scary and also amazing. And you can many times tell what kind of life people had lived by their response to that moment when they really got that they were going to die. See, most of us live in that space where we think that death is something that happens to somebody else, but not us. But when that moment of deep realization happens, people handle it differently. When people have practiced dying throughout their lives, the big death at the end isn't so scary. That's not to say it isn't scary, but it's not, maybe not so scary. Sometimes it's just a sigh and a faint smile, and that's, so this is it. But if someone comes to that awareness and is caught by surprise, it can be like an Alfred E. Newman moment, if I can be crass about it. Who, me? It's disbelief that it's actually happening to them. And then, unless the person totally flees into denial and panic, the examen of life must begin, and the griefs come up about what has been missed and what hasn't been done and what has been done. And since there hasn't been any practice in letting go, since there hasn't been any practice in dying, it all becomes really hard work, and it all gets crammed into a really short time. Because if there isn't any practice at letting go and dying, there isn't any sense of what might be possible beyond death. But if you are in touch with that internal, quiet place of rest that cannot be disturbed, then it helps do away with the fear. You know, Jesus said, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And see, if we've spent our lives striving and pushing and straining to get ahead of what, God only knows, but if we've been trying to get ahead, then when we discover that none of that stuff is worth a good goddamn, and I use the phrase advisedly, then we see that we've lost the pearl of great price, which is our life. When we discover only too late that our soul has been waiting and longing for us to be present to who we truly are, it can be an overwhelming sense of sadness and grief. But it's one thing to say, well, let go and let G-O-D, let go. It's something else to do it. This dying stuff isn't easy. When an adult child joins a cult and cuts themselves off from you, or when they become super abusive and you have to cut yourself off from them, it's a gutting it out kind of soul work to entrust them to the universe. It's hard work. When your job disappears and the bills are twice as high as the income, it's tough to trust that money isn't an essential part of your life. Fact is that there is a lot of life that is tough to embrace. But what they are places to be welcomed in. Because what they are is they're all deaths that are happening to us that are practiced for the big one. I'm retiring in a couple of months. It means letting go of an important piece of the way that I've identified myself. I know at one level that this identity with job is not the important or the sole part of me. But that doesn't keep the ego from quacking and chirping and imitating chocolate rubber Easter Bucky and telling me that this job is the only reason that people relate to me anyway, or wherever my friends. It doesn't stop all of those fears about survival and money and health and it's hard work. See, every form of world spirituality knows about death and resurrection. There's this deep knowledge that you have to look past and die to the cultural and habitual accretions and accumulations of identities if we're to encounter our true eternal selves, our souls. Buddhism calls it emptiness. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is the Book of the Dead, which essentially lays out a pathway for coming to new life by dying. He lays out a path to that place that we call soul. See, the conundrum, the oxymoron about Easter is that vital aliveness is dependent on dying. Jesus might well have said, only those who die will be fully alive. We sang the song about the kernel of grain that must die before it can come to life and really manifest itself fully. Fact is, dying is scary work, but it's only when you're able to fully embrace it that you're able to know the fullness of grace and connection and vitality and life. It's only when you let go of your isolated small self contained within your so carefully constructed identity. It's only when you let go of that that you discover that at the soul level there is nothing but connection. Nothing but connection. Connection and life. It's when you can let go and trust that you will discover the beyond of life. The essential core of being that is connected to, a part of, a reflection of and an extension of the creative force of the universe that is eternal, alive, present, and full. When you let yourself die and discover your soul, that's called resurrection. It's called new life, new being. It's called Easter. So my wish for you is that may the peace and blessings of your soul break forth and shine throughout your life today. And for each day that you live hereafter. Peace and blessings.